All right, we are live officially. It's the Tuesday, midday or early morning news update. And so today I'm excited to be back again for live stream. I got my guy over here, Mr. Paul Half Dollar. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good today, Mike. I think I finally got this set with the ways that it goes there. That's nice. How you doing today, Mike?
I am doing good, my friend. Once again, just actively looking and educating and just trying to really understand where we're at and what's going on and give people another perspective outside of the mainstream narrative, which we've talked several times before, will be very dialed down and diluted to keep us calm in the midst of the need for preparation. So I titled this one, thanks to you. I appreciate you giving me the heads up on this word, but I think I gave it a great definition that we're going to use, on this channel, especially on the Silver Doctors as well, moving forward, because I think it's very relevant to where we're at now. And it has to be, it's the word human malware. And so what I actually want to do is to give people a chance to better understand what I'm referring to. I'm going to share the definition. I just created this definition, so it's fresh. So, Mr. Half Dollar, feel free to let me know if it's relevant and suitable for what we're talking about here. But on the screen, It says human malware, a portmanteau for malicious bioweapon, which means play on words, is any biological creation intentionally designed to cause damage to organs, human genome, or human body directly. By contrast, unintentional harm due to some deficiency is typically described as a virus. Hashtag that word. And so, in your opinion, how does that word describe the words human malware?
I think it describes it great. Because one of the things that's interesting is malware. Somebody's got to write that, right? Malware is code, so somebody has to write that code. So I didn't know you did this definition, and I'm looking here. Let me critique it. It's a biological creation intentionally designed to cause damage. That's exactly what malware is intended to do. So I think that works good. Viruses can be malware. So the second part is good. But then, I guess it comes down to, is there just naturally occurring malware? For example, like Microsoft Windows 10, to me, that looks more and more like malware every single day.
So that's the thing. Like, though, this is the initial creation. Like, that definition is literally 5 minutes old, so it's always there's room for tweaking. But I think it's a good way to get people to wake up to what's going on, because as you just mentioned, it's created, and so all the malware that we're commonly used to from a software standpoint happens to be created by someone with intentions of harming or gaining access to computer systems for theft and things of that nature. And so I want to continue on with the same narrative, because I think that this malware is created. And I wrote down a couple things here, and just to continue this on the financial side of things, like, everyone knows that we're 300 some trillion dollars globally, upside down in the negative. So basically this planet is in the negative right now in total. And so there is no way of actually being able to repay back and to live up to all those promises. And so my thought was, what better way to disrupt and to create a diversion tactic intentionally to take people's minds off the fact that they're going to be reneged upon and all those promises, as well as usher in a new monetary world order. Because if people are dying in mass, and I think this whole malware situation is probably geared towards eliminating or minimizing the baby boomer generation, because they're the ones that have built this great nation that we're in now, and they're the ones expecting the most out of this current paradigm. I think that will really hit hard on the retirees or those of a little bit older age, because of health conditions already. A lot of people, when they retire, happen to be physically not in their best shape, because they've already given their 30, 40 years of their best energy towards their livelihood. So I think that this malware will definitely cause a lot of shifts in that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you kind of see that being the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're going to be throwing money at it. So the prices of everything is just going to be going up like there's no tomorrow. And people that are on fixed income, and especially the elderly, they're not going to be able to afford what's coming. They're just not going to be able to, they're not going to have enough money, plain and simple. Because just yesterday, the G7 got together, right? It used to be the G8, right? So they call it the group of, right? The group of 7. It used to be the G8 because Russia used to be cool, but now Russia's not cool anymore. So it's now just the G7. But they got together yesterday and like, we're going to do whatever it takes to support these global economies. And we're all in this one big team here together. So let's give it a good fight. And this is going to be devastating to especially the baby boomers because of the inflation that's going to come. Because we're talking about supply chain disruptions, and we're talking about economic recession, and we're talking about global depression, and all of these things. I mean, we've been throwing money in the best of times, right? So now all of a sudden, just minutes ago, the Fed did an emergency 50 basis point, 0.5% Fed funds rate cut, right? So already we're just going to start throwing money at this.
Hold on. Back up a little bit. So say that again. There's been a cut already?
Yeah, moments ago. Let me give you this like fresh off the presses. I just did an article and I got it up. I'm going to put this in the chat right here, and I'm going to also put it in yours right here. Yeah, the Fed just came out with an emergency statement right now saying they just cut basis points by 50. Cut the Fed funds rate by 50 basis points. This is why gold just popped $50. Right? Just spiked $50. And think about this, right? The very first thing the Fed said, the fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong. Oh, really?
Okay, so this is fresh off the press. Okay, because I wasn't aware of this. So thanks, Mr. Half Dollar. So the Fed cut 50%. So exactly where do we stand now? Because we were already 1 3/4 or just shy of 2 points with the Fed funds rate. So where do we stand actually right now?
What was it? I can't remember if it was 1.5 to 1.75. So that would mean we're at 1.0 to 1.5 to 1.25 if they cut by 50 basis points. No, we'd be at. Yeah, that's where we would be at. I would have to see. What does it say right here? Oh, okay. So it says it right there. So it's at between 1 to 1.25, which means it's going to float basically about 1.125. So
here's the thing. So this is a part of the distorted reality we're currently in now. And so if the federal funds rate is at 1.1 or 1 point and a quarter, that is the interest rate at which that's how they set the borrowing costs for our monetary system. So they're basically minimizing it to the point where it really pays to borrow. Like, for those that are going to be incentivized by taking out more debt. So this is going to impact the mortgage side of things. It's going to ruin the savers in the banking sector. And so I thought we were in an expansion, man. Like, what happened? Like, what happened? Like, how do we get to this point if the economy is so great? Like,
there's a meeting in 2 weeks, right? And they're expecting them to cut again. They're expecting them to cut again on March 18th. So, we're going to be under 1% here just in another couple weeks, and they might go straight to 0 on March 18th. So yes, I mean, this is just like, and it really, really makes me so mad when like Zero Hedge puts up an article and they put that stupid Photoshop on Superman. It's like, this is not what we need. This is not what we should be doing. We should not be propping up a banking system that should have collapsed, arguably in 2008, well, arguably long before then, but at least in 2008, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 24/7 market intervention and manipulation is not what we need. And we definitely don't even need the Fed to begin with, I think.
Yeah. So watch this. So, rates are cutting. They're going to cut them. So so basically, based upon the response to this, it's all meant to be preemptive, but it's already after the fact. So it's too late. Now, this is setting up for a very interesting spring outside of the health concerns of this malware that we're facing, because there's a lot of things from that. We're going to touch on some articles about the ships and the protests and stuff like that, just to give people a heads up as to what's going on in the social realm. But on the financial realm, if they're cutting rates and all this heading into spring and definitely by summer, from a practical financial standpoint, for your everyday person that's still employed at this current moment to your average saver, and it's all geared towards keeping the markets high. And I think the Dow, I saw something about, it's down 200 points. I'm not sure what it is now, but things are going to speed up rapidly. And so go ahead.
Mike, it's interesting. It's interesting. The Dow spiked the moment that the statement came out, but they're down. It's still down 200 points. It rolled over. So Mike, we are at that point right now where it doesn't matter, I mean, it's like you can only get so drunk, you can only get so high. They, whatever they're doing now is just not working. It's having an adverse effect. The markets are already rolling over on this, and they should be going straight up, right?
Yeah. So good point. So watch this. I think I heard something, or I mentioned in one of my prior videos about Sunday. or this past weekend, the central banks coordinating some events for this upcoming Monday. And so on Monday, I read something about Japan directly got into their equities markets even more. And so when we came out with 1,000-point Dow increase, I'm not sure what the S&P and NASDAQ was, but I'm like, the first thing that came to my mind is, like, from that little fake tweet I did last week or over the weekend, don't panic, don't worry. The Federal Reserve, the central banks will be here to help you with your 401k, your pension, all stuff like that. And I'm like, man, like, that's very convenient, the fact that the central banks on Monday, they decided to inject and to buy. And so it's good to say the Federal Reserve might be outright purchasing or not propping up directly without Congress approval. And so here's the thing. At this point, because we're in panic mode, it appears, that will the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell even have to go to Congress for approval in an emergency type of situation, given the fact that it takes, like a week to schedule it, a couple days for everybody flying or whatever, and then discuss it and then lay out the time frame? That could be a week or 2 weeks. Does the Federal Reserve and our government have that type of time frame, or can they just give them a key and say, hey, do what you got to do?
No, I think that it will be done, but it will be done as a dog and pony show. Because remember, if it's all about confidence, then I think that the Fed will be with Congress and they're going to have an emergency meeting. I think that is coming because it's going to show that the government and the Fed are working together to face this crisis, right? So I think that will actually be the case here. So I think you're right. I think they will be calling Jerome Powell goes to the White House to meet with President Trump or something like that. That would probably be coming, I would imagine, next week, because we're going to need something next week, right? So this week we got that 50 basis point emergency cut. In 2 weeks, it's the 2-day FOMC. How you going to bridge that gap, right? So I'd be looking for something next week here, showing that kind of relationship, like we're in this together. Let's solve this crisis to keep enriching the rich at the expense of the savers, and especially the elderly savers.
Now, okay, so will it be solely a monetarily led policy type of event, or as far as this toolkit? They're going to open up the toolkit a little bit more, and so they're going to give us more of what they already gave us. But now, will they also require the fiscal side to kick in, like on immediate injection of, or government's going to borrow whatever, but how much will the government be borrowing, and where will they try to send that towards?
I'm sure, there will absolutely, no doubt, be fiscal stimulus coming. There's no doubt in my mind. I did an article this morning. Maybe we should talk about it because I think it's relevant to what we're talking about, which is why I think that fiscal stimulus is coming. And I don't even know if I sent it to you. That one I did about the casinos, I didn't stick it or anything. It's just a little article that I did up. I don't even think I did them. I think I just did it as a Silver Doctor editor. But the point is, let me give you this link right here. The point with that is, in Macau only had 10 to this day, like Macau, right? Macau is one of those administrative zones, just like Hong Kong, right? So Macau is part of China administratively, kind of like Hong Kong is, or kind of like Puerto Rico is with the United States. And then, Macau is essentially the Las Vegas, right, of China. That's what Macau is. And their tourism, their gaming revenue, their gambling revenue, and their casinos has collapsed by 80% and 87.8% drop in the month of February. So think about that. There's not one case in the state of Nevada, Mike. But guess what borders Nevada? Oregon. There's cases there. Guess what else borders Nevada? California. There's cases there. Guess what else borders Nevada? Washington. Or Arizona. There's cases there, right? So my point is this, right? And we saw yesterday on Silver Doctors Live just how they can abruptly close a shopping mall with 1 day's notice, right? So I'm thinking, if there's a community spread, that's the buzzword, community spread. And if there's an outbreak in Las Vegas, are they just going to start shutting down casinos and conventions and shows? And if that happens, what does that mean for all of the people that are out there working, juggling 2 or 3 jobs, and now all of a sudden they can't even go into their job because their casino abruptly shut down, right? Fiscal stimulus is coming. And people who think that it's not, I mean, that's what's going to happen. The government and the central banks are just going to throw money at this problem. But the problem is that, there's only a certain amount of goods. And I think money velocity, right? Money velocity. That's one of the things we're going to start talking about again, because money's going to start exchanging hands a lot faster going forward. Did any of that make sense, Mike, at all? Or
it all makes sense. It all makes sense. And so that right there, that concerns me, because not only do we have concerns about just the malware itself and how I, reading all types of articles about how it can remain dormant or it can remain on the surface for up to 9 days, and all those technical medical talks and whatnot. So we can dive into more of that. But one of my thing is, as the velocity picks up, and therefore that's going to be reflected in people actually looking to move cash around, and cash can be a carrier of the malware itself. Where I was also thinking about. Let me actually try to find this real quick. There's something that I wanted to bring up about how the whole digitization of things will be also picking up, because I can see, I'm gonna just throw it out there now, I can see the introduction of the e-dollar coming real soon. And the reason I say e-dollar is because I came across something that I think will be very important for people to see. And it happens to be some graphics that comes from the BIS. Let me try to find it real quick. I didn't plan on going there today, but let me see if I can find it. Here we go here. Yeah. So here is a article. Here is, give me 1 second. And then I'll show you this. Let me grab a hold of this. I'm going to show you that was prepared. And it gives a good, interesting layout as to their plans and what they want to do. And it goes a lot deeper, but I didn't get a chance to grab the full thing. But it has, let me pull this up here. Oops. So here on the screen here, this is a tweet from the BIS, which came out March 1st. And it gives just like a template, or what's considered, just the central bank digital currency pyramid. And there was some more to this that hopefully I can grab. But the other half of this graph here, it has just the CBDC says from the consumer needs, what's needed from the consumers, and then what the central banks want to make sure they can keep control of. And it starts at the very bottom. Their goal is to make the CBDC cash-like with peer-to-peer functionality. And so if the malware is on currencies, this plays in very well to the fact that we don't want you interchanging contaminated, paper notes. So so this is about the e-corona, the e-euro, and something else that was attached to this same form coming out. So it's good to say the Federal Reserve is not behind the curve, because they're the leading central bank that has all this under their window. So it's good to say the e-dollar is coming pretty soon as well, because I can imagine that as part of the toolkit, they've been researching cryptocurrency or the blockchain or whatever, that terminology, for some time now. And so the e-dollar will be something that will be another toolkit that I can see coming probably a lot sooner than they anticipated. So that what do you think they'll be rolling out something in this magnitude, given the fact that cash will be a problem if velocity money picks up?
Yeah. And I think you're bringing up a good point with as far as the rollout goes, because the more that we are talking about it and the more you bring up little cool things like this, because I got to say, you're on top of this really good. You're on top of all this push to digital that you call it. That's a great phrase, right? You're on top of the push to digital. So, and I appreciate that. But the more you explain these things to me, the more it makes sense that it's going to be like the rollout when we switched from analog to digital. And that is going to be, we're going to roll out this e-dollar. That could be the fiscal stimulus in and of itself. Hey, we got this new currency. We're going to start giving it out, start going out and spending it, start using it. Here's what it's worth. Here's what the value should be. And then slowly they're going to phase out dollars as we know them today, right? Yeah. Kind of like they phased out analog TV.
Now,
so absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So watch this. So as a part of that, sorry to cut you off. As a part of that, it's one of those things where the goal is to keep people spending. But here's a caveat that will be of use, better use for the powers that be, is that you don't have to actually leave and go spend. You can still be engaged in the economy from your phone, because whatever the e-dollar is, just like the e-corona, is going to be based upon an app that you can use directly. And so you can still have stuff sent to your house or whatever. So you don't even have to leave with this e-dollar. So
Mike, I don't mean to laugh, right? Someone was like, why are you guys laughing about all this stuff? Because how else are you going to handle it? This is, I don't know, laughter is the best medicine, but this is going to be so bad in the United States, because think about what you're saying. We got to keep spending. Well, if we have a global supply chain disruption, which we do in fact have, right, then that means less goods and services. Pretty soon, not many goods and services at all to pick and choose from. Yeah. But if we've got the human malware blowing up in the United States, well, there goes your service sector. There goes your restaurants. There goes your entertainment, your sports venues, your movie theaters. So what are Americans going to spend their money on? That's my question to you. I mean, it's like, this is not going to be good, because if the GDP of the United States, we keep hearing is always like 70% of GDP is consumer spending. Yeah. But if there's nothing to buy and there's nowhere to go out to spend it in the disposable discretionary entertainment fashion, then where do we go from there?
Good point. Now, just for those that might just be tuning in, they may not. What was this guy talking about? Human malware. So I just put up on the screen again. And so it's a little definition I came up with based upon the concept of malware from a software standpoint. Because at this point, I would imagine that everyone kind of believes that this current health scare is intentional. Therefore, it was created. Therefore, there's somebody out there or a group of entities, which we all can pinpoint to who, what, where, when. But we know their intentions. Their intentions is to cause panic, to mass disruption in the global system, to usher in the shift while cutting back on some of their responsibilities as far as paying out these promises. And so there's certain sectors I think will be targeted. And so here's another interesting thing I think I come across through the alternative media is that the chemical composition of this particular malware is unique in nature, because it's something that has been created to not easily be destroyed, but it can spin or mutate within itself to harm different people at different times, different whatever. And so, I'm not going to say all the strands of stuff I heard is inside of this protein or whatever. But if that is the case, if that is a true biological, composition of that weapon there, I wonder, at what point was this a part of the original game plan to cause this disruption? Because we all knew at some point there was going to be a catalyst for a reset. I would say I caught me off guard. I would have never imagined it would have been human malware, to where the best place to reboot the system is to attack the very entity that stands to offer the most protests and an uprising. But yet this is, was this a long time coming, or was this something that within the last 10 years they put this together, knowing that this decade was going to be that reboot period?
Yeah, I think this was plan B. I think this is a long time coming, but I think this was plan B, because remember, it is kind of like a wild animal, right? Once you let it out of the bag, you don't know exactly where it's going to go. So It's not like war in a war sense, because, I would have thought, because everybody's been looking for it to be in conjunction with war. When all else fails, take us to war. And I was explaining that, to my kids. They're like, well, how do wars start? And I'm like, well, here's how wars start, The government rounds up a bunch of their own citizens. They shoot them all dead. And then they grab a couple prisoners and they shoot them dead. And they put foreign enemy uniforms on them. And they say, look, they attacked our border now. We're at war with them now, right? So that's how wars start.
Yeah.
But in, an era of 4G LTE, now 5G, in an era of smartphones and social media, you can't do that kind of stuff anymore. You can't do that because, you remember like those white helmets and all that? It's just disgusting, right? It's really disgusting, the false flag hoaxes that start international events. So my point with that is, this is perfect because you can't see it. So there's no way to dispute it on social media because you can't see a virus attacking somebody. So absolutely, this is, in my opinion, the trigger to the economic collapse. I keep saying it's going to be a nasty, severe global depression, but who knows,
Yeah. Now, I remember we were talking about, in December, like saying the 2020 is going to be one of a heck of a year, nevertheless a decade. I would have never imagined we'd be experiencing this in this magnitude, to where it's the beginning of the year. And there's a lot of people out here, and as you know me, I don't operate from the fear standpoint. I operate from the optimistic standpoint of, everything is going to be okay in the long run. It's just, the going through the valley. It's going to be a little challenge, but I'm thinking like, man, it's not even, it's literally the beginning of March. Now, I remember at the beginning of February, I was like, how bad would February be? What can we expect in February? So off the top of my head, I think we did mention that there was going to be some type of rate cut or central bank, problem. I think this was before the market. So January, the markets were at an all-time high. Trump tweeted, how you feeling, Richard? Da, 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 da. February, there's some correction. Central banks got in directly. Now, March, let's throw out a couple possible scenarios of what's going to happen. So you're thinking like direct injection outright, some type of announcement by the president, perhaps saying that in March, will we get another press conference from the president saying, like now's the time to prepare, even though we're a month into the cycle of everybody now experiencing something in more cities. At what point will President Trump come on national television and declare a national emergency?
Good question. I don't think anybody in the government's ever going to tell us to prepare. Here's. I want to answer that question, but kind of in a different angle because you're making me think of a couple things.
All right.
We keep hearing about like it's going to get better once the weather warms up. I don't think it's going to get better once the weather warms up because everybody's talking about, well, it's like the flu and the flu has seasons and it's badder in the winter and whatnot. What if it's like HIV, right? HIV doesn't discriminate against the weather like that, right? So we don't know. I mean, we don't know. And since everybody's expecting it to get better in the spring, bam, that's when they hit them with the shocker, right? That's when it's not getting better by the springtime. That's when it's getting worse. So yeah, I think that it's not going to be an announcement to get prepared, but I think it will be an announcement that there will be fiscal stimulus and go out and spend. The question is the Fed's actions in March going to be enough? Because the Fed's actions are today and they're on the 18th. If that's not enough, which I don't think it is enough, right? The stock market's down 550 points right now, Mike. Right now.
So here's the thing.
They just cut emergency 50 basis points and the stock market's down 550 points.
So watch this. So here's the thing. You use the word enough. Enough to do what? Like to prop it up, to keep it going, or what? Like what does enough mean?
Yes, exactly. Because, that's exactly what I'm talking about is because the whole point of this is to keep that prop market stocked up and keep the banking system afloat and everything else that they're trying to do with the what I call a bastardized financial system. That is what we have, right? We have financial engineering of the most vile. But, if it's not enough, which it's looking like it's not enough right now, you would think that the markets will be bouncing off of this good market news, right? If it's not enough, then they're going to have to come out with that fiscal stimulus this month. And we'll know a lot by the end of this week, actually, because I have a feeling that by the end of this week, we're going to see a turn in these metals. We might have already seen them now, but, there's going to be thousands of cases in the U.S. pretty soon. There's already over 100.
So if there's sort of a stimulus, so at this point, like, here's my opinion. If this human malware is going to be a societal disruptor, there is no number that you can inject to keep confidence because more people are concerned will be concerned with their health than they will be their pockets.
Yes, and people will be concerned with pretty soon here getting those dollars out of their hands. And I'm not talking about like literally, I'm talking about like just in general. They're going to want to get out of their dollars and get into real things because people are going to quickly realize that the real things that are floating around in this world are not floating around in this world anymore. And that there's just simply too much money that's been printed and it's got to find a place to go, right? I think on Friday I said like the people who see this now will be rewarded. The people who see this early will be spared. But the people who see this too late will be devastated. And that's literally what's coming.
Now, here's another thing to think about. At this current moment, if this human malware happens to be a game-changing creation, numbers really don't matter at this point, in my personal opinion. So as the conventional financial markets drop significantly, if this ends up being the case, and metals skyrocket, what good is an ounce of silver at $1,000 if they just injected 4, 5, 6 trillion? The balance sheet shot up to 20 trillion. Retire written accounts is, the stock market is now at 100,000 Dow, but no confidence. Velocity's picked up. Scarcity of supply chain. Will having silver reach all-time highs really be of importance?
I think it will because it's going to be with the rebuilding, right? Because life has to go on and things have to still get produced and crops still have to grow. And yes, will it be a struggle? Absolutely. But life still has to go on. That's why I say the people who are going to be leading this in the future are going to be the people who made the prudent decisions to buy, productive land, to, because you can turn that silver, you can turn that gold into productive real estate for that matter. So yes, as a tool, right? So what good will it be? Well, it will be good for whatever reason that money would be good for, right? Which is in my opinion, arguably one of the most important human tools, right? Because you've got the hatchet, right? Or the knife, right? Like that's an important human tool. But money, that's kind of different because money is one of those human tools where you can get other people to do things, right? So money can pay for things, money can do lots of things, and that's what silver is. So absolutely, silver will be worthwhile this whole time because life and civilization supposedly will go on, right?
Yeah. Now watch this. Here's another thought. And so of course I'm not being downplaying this or whatever, but just throwing out possible scenarios because if this is that societal disruptor of human life, then a majority of the stackers won't necessarily be around to enjoy the wealth gain or the wealth transfer. So there might end up being a good portion of the planet that might have prepared that just, through whatever circumstance happened to be a casualty to this human software, to where a lot of the people who spent all their time stacking, preparing, accumulating may not get a chance to actually have access to that metal because they're no longer here or whatever, to where so this is just like on some scary movie type talk just coming out my head. I can put the hat on and go too far, but I want to scare people.
Yeah.
But in this rebuilding phase, if the population happens to dip down to what the Agenda 2030, 2021 is, type of numbers, then at that point, majority of those people still left alive, which will be kids, because adults, I believe this human software weapon is targeting adults currently. So if our younger generation happens to live a little longer, they have no clue as to what metals really are. So I can imagine the metals pretty much going underutilized, because once again, kids, some of them don't know the monetary value of metals, to where it'll be easier to roll out the $E and the E whatever in a crisis type of situation to rebuild, where the metals sit in people's vaults and stuff like that, because the people who are aware and was knowledgeable might be gone.
Yeah, I don't know. I would disagree with that.
Okay, go ahead. Please do. Yes, I like that.
Because I think that it's like my sea turtle analogy, right? I think that it is in our genes that we instinctively know that gold and silver are money. And if it's the type of population reducing crisis that you're talking about, then especially in that case.
Yeah.
Just like those sea turtles hatch on the beach and they instinctively know which way to go to get to the ocean, right? We instinctively know that gold and silver are money. So through this crisis, at one point it will come back, right? Because something has to be said for 5,000 years of human history, right? Something has to be said for that. So, kind of like, we've domesticated dogs in that sense. So in another sense, we've also instinctively known what gold and silver are and that they're money. So, I would say that it will be used absolutely still through this, even though, we're talking about pretty much nobody alive today, very few people. Right, just the hardcore silver bugs and gold bugs.
So I overall am very optimistic in how this will play out. It's going to be an adjustment phase as this all unfolds, but life will go on, because this is not, in my opinion, how this is supposed to end. So
yeah. Because here's the thing. Let me cut you off for just 1 second. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Go ahead.
Because here's the thing, right? Like the one thing that I keep thinking about more and more lately, especially with relation to what they let happen with the cryptos and with Bitcoin over the past few years. Is that's actually backfiring on them for allowing them to run, because by allowing the cryptos and Bitcoin to run and then crashing them, what does that do? That gets people to think about, well, what is money then, right? And then if a person thinks about, well, what is money, then all roads lead to gold and silver, just like all roads lead to Rome, right? So I'm actually even more hopeful now, right? As these systems break down. What if the grids go down, right? What if so many people die off that you can't even keep the grids going, right? If you can't keep the power grids going, because remember, a silver coin in your hand, you don't have to have an internet connection. You don't have to have 256-bit AES encryption. You don't have to have nodes. You don't have to have none of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So, if this human malware is that bad, then you're not going to want to have that anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
good point.
Good point there.
Hey, man, so
I'm rambling again. I apologize for that.
Hey, that's what these shows are about, man, to share our insights, because as everyone noticed, as we discuss and bounce ideas off each other, that's what triggers new inspirational thoughts. So no rants, no additional thoughts. We will be sticking to a script and just look, we will be literally reading off a teleprompter if we just stuck to the script. So Mike, it's all good.
One more thing I just want to bring up before we conclude today, and then when we touch base again tomorrow, I just got to bring this up. Do you still have that link I sent you about that cruise ship? Because this is kind of interesting. This is showing the social, we're getting into high tide as far as the social mood. Let me see here. Here it is. I got it right here. So
I got it.
So just think about this, right? For people who don't understand the way that cruise ships work, I haven't been on. This plane on my head again. So there we go. So the way that, I haven't been on a cruise ship since I was a kid, but the way that it works is cruises go around and then they stop at docks in different ports, right? And then the cruise ship resupplies and whatever. And then the cruise ship people, right? The people that are taking the cruise, they get off, they go around the town for a few hours or maybe a day or whatever it is. And then the cruise goes off and they cruise again and then they port to the next dock. Well, what's happening now is these cruise ships that are already out, they're starting to come to the ports, and people are starting to protest these things. And they're like, get the heck out of here. We do not want this cruise ship here. And now, like, the protests are starting to turn violent. They were like setting stuff on fire and throwing rocks and stuff. And there's not one confirmed case on this cruise ship. So do you see what I mean? This is turning into one of those things where, like, you know, you don't even want, you know, there's no confirmed human malware on that ship, and it's starting to turn violent. You can see the social moods shifting here. Yeah. So this is going to be something that we kind of need to watch, because, you know, people are definitely, if they haven't already, or if they're still holding out hope that, you know, this summer we're taking this cruise ship we've never taken before, we've been planning for 5 years. I think that a lot of those plans are going to start getting scrapped here very soon.
Yeah, I would agree. And so just from the great cut just happened a minute ago, the Dow dropping now. It's still early. We're not even at noon yet. So, you know, by the time the market's closed, this could be a historical day. Yeah. And we will then wake up again tomorrow to more interesting news, because once again, if they can cut, nothing happens. They can interject, and nothing happens. Then what? Like, so. Yeah, this is where interesting times, and we just covered some of the basic things. We didn't really get too deep into much else, but I just wanted to make sure I introduce, thanks to Mr. Half Dollar, the word human malware. So for those that, you know, watch the replay, you see this definition here. This is a good way of looking at what we're experiencing now. It's created intentionally to cause this disruption for the rebooting of our system, because I think the goal was probably just to speed this thing up. Now, we can continue this on another time. But is this a part of the game plan that President Trump was already a part of? Or is there any chance that he was caught off guard by this at all?
I don't know.
He's touting wanting a second term. What do you need a second term for? Like, do something in the first, do something substantial within your first term to make the second term an automatic shoe in, because it'll be a no-brainer. So is this a way of the financial establishment of unleashing something to disrupt the second term? Because they could have been concerned with him no longer playing ball, or is this all a part of the initial script in the first place?
No, I think it's all a part of the initial script in the first place. I think that President Trump is a deep state globalist in Patriots clothing. So I do not think that he's a good guy. I think that he's a false patriot, and I think that he is pretty evil and pretty vile. Yeah. Personally, that's just my own personal opinion of that. Yeah. So I think that he's in on it. I do not think that he's a good guy. So, I think this is all part of it. And that goes back to, if enough crumbs and there's nothing left for America as far as wealth goes, then they're ready to just bring America to its breaking point and bring America down to its knees. And, we are woefully unprepared for this. And, that's the other thing, right? They're saying we're the best prepared in the world. Like, we're the worst prepared in the world for this. We're the worst prepared in the world for this, right?
Right. And using that, John Hopkins, John Hopkins says, like, here it says, John Hopkins says that we're number one in the world for. Okay. So anyway, but for more for another day, Mr. Half Dollar, I appreciate you for taking time to join me here on RTD News Update. As always, man, you bring a lot of valuable insights, and you spark my insights to take me out there too. So I appreciate you. And other than that, everybody, it's been great hanging out this afternoon. Stay in tune to what's going on, prepared and everything else. Stay prayed up, more importantly. Give it to God. Let God do what he has to do, because I'm very optimistic in the fact that God, he knows what's going on. So nothing surprises him, thank God. So other than that, that is it. Mr. Half Dollar, let's do it again tomorrow. Same time, same place, different channel.